Requiem, Hope, Lies, Pain, and the Lincoln Bathroom. As you can tell, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things today. So, welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's get started. Vice President Kamala Harris is touring the country talking about her book, and I haven't really watched any of it. But what I want to make a statement about what I think went wrong with the Democrats in 2024. And that's a remembrance of what I think happened. The personal ambition, I believe, weakened the Democratic Party. People jumping from the House to the Senate, being ambitious towards their personal goals, their political careers, as opposed to maintaining some stability of leadership in both the houses. That's something that we would have needed. But then again, you have successful candidates like Adam Schiff and Ruben Gallego who found the opportunity to forward their careers and perhaps even their voice in these trying times. I also think that Biden did not realize that his time was up at the right time. And then even after realizing it, I believe that he hesitated. And I believe that he should have resigned at the beginning of 2024, said that he's not running again, let Kamala Harris become the president of the United States, and then declare her candidacy for the presidency for the election of 2024. I believe that would have given that would have been President Harris the chance to govern as well as campaign. It would have showed the American people that Vice President Harris was capable of performing the duties of the president because that's what she was doing. And I think that would have strengthened the Democratic ticket, no matter who she picked as her vice president. Tim Walz was just as strong of a candidate as Andy Beshear was, but she went with Tim Walz. And I believe that would have her being president before the campaign starts would have been, or at least given her some extra time, would have been a better choice than what happened, which was that Biden, sort of sat out his entire presidency. Harris had to campaign for 107 days all of a sudden. And there was communication lapses between the two, President Biden and Vice President Harris, that kind of got in the way of how the Democrats should have handled the 2024 election. So with that said, it begs the question, can America have a woman president? Does America have the balls to have a woman president? I don't think America needs the balls to have a woman president. American women are strong and more educated than American men. Women work twice as hard to get half as far. So you know that when they get to the points of leadership, that they are head and shoulders above their colleagues and in how competent they are. The problem lies in convincing Americans, especially American white women, because we know that black women vote and they vote overwhelmingly Democratic, that we need to convince American white women that a woman leader would be a good thing for the United States. In fact, I would like to see an all-female presidential ticket in the near future. But as we learned in 2016 and 2024, women, white women, are not a monolith. That can be counted on to vote for a woman as a president. There are a lot of things that play into it that may include self-loathing. It may include some distrust in 2016 of a white woman among black women, and may have been the same thing happening in reverse with a multi-ethnic woman in Kamala Harris, and then a white woman demographic that didn't know what to do. And then there's this adherence to the patriarchy because that's what we know and we are familiar with. And an aversion to change, I believe, because of generational trauma that has almost become custom. But a woman leading America is the change that our country desperately needs. Because as we go through this administration, we are having to deal with the lies and the pains of the current MAGA regime, and we are seeing what a patriarchal system has brought us to. We are trying to identify who we are as Americans as we see this sort of manosphere culture emerge. And part of that culture is this dominance, this desire to dominate and desire to never give in, never give up, always hope that the other person would give up. And that's why now we have a shutdown that has moved on to the 32nd day, and SNAP assistance has frozen, has been paused. People's insurance, medical insurance premiums are skyrocketing because of the expiration of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. And there are $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that are stalling Democrats from putting their names on a resolution that will take away from the people basic food assistance, basic medical health care, and affordability of health care for those who can afford to buy it, but not at astronomical prices, but at reasonable ones. And to that end, we are stuck now with Mike Johnson's lies. Speaker Mike Johnson is a pathological liar and probably one of the more evil people we have had as a speaker. And as all evil people are, he is weak. He cannot stand alone. He's crawling up Donald's behind to find power because he's not smart enough to wield the power of his gavel. He's the Speaker of the House. And in doing so, Mike Johnson has relented Congress's powers to the president. So I want to go down a list of Mike Johnson's lies from the last press conference. And he has been spewing these lies over and over and over again. And this time, the USDA Secretary, Brooke, I think her name is Rollins, whatever, the USDA Secretary said, "We have failed you," to the American people in talking about where we are today and the not using of the contingency and whatever else she thought about. She says publicly, "We failed you." And Mike Johnson quickly jumps in to say that by Brooke saying we, she meant the Democrats. Well, make that lie make sense. Like, what is he trying to do here? He's trying to put the toothpaste back into the tube after it has been spilt here. Mike Johnson claims that they eliminated fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid. By the way, that hasn't happened yet because the Medicaid provisions haven't even been implemented yet. So he hasn't removed able-bodied young workers off of the couch or anything because the big bad bill hasn't really gone into full effect yet. But he is bringing up that sort of fallacy that this is what he has done, and to take away from people who are sitting around in their couches playing video games. I really would hope that Mike Johnson would stop referring to the vice president in this manner and get onto the business of giving the American people affordable health care and the tax subsidies needed to get affordable health care and basic food assistance. Then he goes on to say that the White House has done everything it can to mitigate the harm felt by the American people. That is a lie. Donald Trump left for Asia, which is quite unheard of when the president leaves a country in crisis, a country that is shut down, and goes on a foreign trip in the middle of a shutdown. Donald's Department of Agriculture removed information about the SNAP contingency fund from the USDA website. Donald Trump is the one directing Mike not to work with the Democrats to negotiate opening the government, even as the Senate seems to be open to work with Democrats. And what the Democrats want are quite simple: restore the Affordable Care subsidies, cut back on massive cuts to Medicaid, cut back on massive cuts to SNAP. And it's quite simple that these are the things that the Republicans don't want to extend to the American people. Then Mike said, Democrats have skipped town and abandoned their post. That is also a lie. Mike sent Republicans home after passing the continuing resolution and has not held a legislative session in the House other than to do what is required of Congress, to show up every few days and say that it is open. And he said that that he won't open the House for business until the government opens. Democrats are in DC ready for the government to open. Republicans aren't. And one day Mike says that the Democrats are the ones who ran out of town, when on the other hand, he says that his party's members are in their districts doing important work. Have they held a town hall yet? I don't think that a Republican House member who has been on vacation for the last month has held even one town hall. So what information and what work are they doing? Then Brooke Collins, not Rollins, Brooke Collins says about the SNAP contingency, by law, contingency fund can only flow when the underlying fund is flowing. And Mike says Democrats are lying. Again, false. Because 25 attorney generals across the country have sued the federal government for the dispersal of the contingency emergency funds for SNAP. Then he goes on to say Democrats want to give illegal aliens health care. First of all, no human being is illegal. The proper term is undocumented immigrant. And Medicaid does not pay for undocumented immigrants. The only time that a person who is undocumented is cared for and Medicaid comes into play is if they end up in an emergency room. As a matter of medical practice and the Hippocratic oath that doctors take, they are not allowed to turn away care for those in dire need and who are in life-threatening situations. And that's the only time Medicaid covers any costs, so as to not conflict with the Hippocratic oath and the basic decency that you can't let people, whether they be undocumented or documented or citizens, to die in front of you when you have the ability to stop that. And that's a very small fraction of the entire Medicaid budget. Excuse me. I think it's maybe like less than 1% of the Medicaid budget or something that it happens. It's not allocated that way, but Medicaid covers those costs should that happen. And there's no evidence that that system is in any way exploited. So then Mike Johnson goes on to blame Democrats, saying that Democrats are blaming Republicans for cutting off SNAP, because that is what the Republicans did in the big bad bill. And now that's what they're doing by blocking the use of the contingency funds to cover the emergency that we're currently facing. So it is the Republicans who have stopped the government because they are in power. They hold the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House, but they will not give the American people basic SNAP assistance through the contingency fund or through the big bad bill. They're not going to extend the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare subsidies, while they talk ill of Obamacare. But there really isn't any other alternative that the Republicans have come up with in the last 10 years. And even to this day, they don't have a plan for what they're going to do with healthcare. So, despite that, they have tried to overturn Obamacare 70 times, 70, and they have failed to do so. But they still will not extend the subsidies so Americans can have affordable health care. Then Brooke Collins says that the food stamp program, meaning the SNAP program, is an extremely corrupt program. And Senator Patty Murray comes out and says that the nutrition assistance is not corrupt. Food stamps kept my family fed when my mom had to look for work after my dad got sick with MS. The Trump administration wants kids, seniors, and veterans to go hungry. They are refusing to use emergency funds to keep SNAP benefits going. And that's the truth about the matter. And these are the lies that we're dealing with on a daily basis, provable lies that Mike Johnson is spewing with a straight face to the American people, as over 42 million Americans are now in dire need of food safety, of food security, but also of skyrocketing healthcare premiums, insurance premiums, as well as the prospect of loss of Medicaid funding. As a silver lining to this dark, ominous cloud that I just explained to you today, 2 federal courts have ordered the resumption of the SNAP benefits with the use of the emergency funds. But Donald Trump still says he needs more clarification from the court. And while millions and millions are left without food assistance and skyrocketing healthcare premiums, Donald is hosting a Halloween party themed on the Great Gatsby of the Gilded Age of opulence that is themed as a little party never killed nobody. That is the tone deafness of what Donald Trump's administration is doing. Then you have the changes he's making to the White House, and we are watching that take more full form as we come to learn that Donald Trump has renovated the Lincoln bathroom. He's quietly renovating parts of the White House. Don't know where he's getting the permission from, where that's coming from, whether Congress has appropriated funds for it or not. We don't know. But there's this, there was a 1940s Art Deco style Lincoln bathroom that was made at that time presumptively with congressional consent. And now we have this marble and gold thing that has become the Lincoln bathroom, and the picture is part of my thumbnail. You can see it. Congressman Veronica Escobar responds to it by saying that millions of Americans, including thousands of El Pasoans, will be going hungry starting tomorrow because the president is choosing not to use $6 billion in available emergency SNAP funding. Instead, his focus is on his White House renovations. And we didn't know about this renovation until it happened. There was history in that design of that bathroom. There was muted simplicity that is hallmark of American governmental architecture. There was a character. And now it has been plastered, the whole place, with marble and gold, with no appreciation for history and architectural style of the White House or the Lincoln bathroom. So don't be surprised if Donald Trump goes around changing everything inside the White House like he's remodeling his own home. And that should worry us all, because that shows that Donald has a desire to never leave the White House. He's changing he's putting in a ballroom. He has destroyed the East Wing without going through proper channels, without consent of Congress, without congressional authorization or fund appropriation. Where is he going to go next? Is he going to go to the residence and change it completely? Is he going to say, I'm going to renovate the whole West Wing and start demolishing parts of that? Is he going to change around the Oval Office architecturally? That should worry us. Not only because that shows that Donald Trump doesn't have a desire to leave, but also because he is erasing our history, creating the White House in his image. Regardless of whether he actually leaves or not, this will stay, and his imprint, his piss stain, will stay on the White House and the White House grounds because of what he's doing. He has already desecrated the Oval Office with the tackiness of gold everywhere. All the gold is an affront to the Oval Office. A room with no corners where leaders can sit freely and speak, while guests also wondered at the awesome high ceiling architecture and design of everything about that office. From the giant windows and the garden views to the blend-in doors and the doorways out to the colonnade, and all of it being open to the world while maintaining the privacy of the Oval Office with those blend-in doors. And I'm just fearful of him changing that around. And he's already done so much with the gold that people are blinded when they're in there by the shining. It looks more like a gilded cage than the leader of the free world. It looks like a despot's audience room. And for a time, when kings and emperors were wrapped up in gold, not contemporary royals around the world, because he's wanting to be a tyrant and a king, And then he goes out and says that he doesn't want to be king. I don't know about you, but I would beware of the lying tyrant and his demons going around and lying on his behalf. With that said, keep an eye out for everything that is happening, and I'll include information about resources where you can go in the description box, as I have, for going to food pantries, food banks, and food kitchens. If you have more information, if you have information about your local food pantry, please put it in the comment box, or put it in the comment box of this video, and I will add it to my resources list. So far, it is areas that I have lived in, that I am familiar with, and organizations that I am familiar with, or people who have shared information that I am comfortable sharing, like the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and congressional candidate Fred Wellman of Missouri's 2nd District. So, with that said, take care of one another. We are going to see some rough patches coming up. We can make it through by helping one another. So help each other in any way you can. And I thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe.